Yes? No, but then it's like I'm.
Us to speak, and then you'll see. Yeah, it doesn't move. It doesn't move. This is the mayor's chair, so.
That, right there.
So, yep, push it again.
Mayor for the day.
Yeah, it doesn't let you.
This,
Then you're automatically hot.
well, that's weird.
And I'll turn my mic on, and it removes me from your screen, from the list. It moves me over to a speaker.
Okay.
We are calling this meeting to order at 4 o'clock, and we'll start now with the roll call. Councilmember Dew,
Here.
Vice President Gardner,
Here.
Board Member Fox,
Here.
Councilmember Larea Diaz.
Present.
We will now begin public comment. Can you please put 2 minutes on the clock? Members of the public wishing to address the committee on discussion items may do so in person by signing into the public speaker's kiosk located in the back of the council chambers or via Zoom. You also have the option to join by phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter meeting ID 914-0075-0676#. Press *9 to digitally raise your hand from the phone. We'll let the 2-minute clock run down.
Chair, while that sign-up period is taking place, would you like to call the first in-person speaker?
Yes, please. I don't see the name.
Speaker Carola, I believe, public speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Carola Zierman, and I'm a Vallejo resident, and I'm here to introduce the newly founded Vallejo Educational Foundation. We were founded last month by a group of caring parents, grandparents, and residents of Vallejo, and the foundation is dedicated to offering Vallejo students every opportunity to learn and thrive. I'm the founder and president of the foundation, and we are a volunteer-led, non-profit organization, and we have already fully tax-exempt 501c3 status. Our mission and purpose is to provide resources and programs to enhance the quality of education for students in Vallejo's public schools through grants. We are following the example of many other educational foundations in cities around the Bay Area who are quite successful. To carry out the foundation's purpose, the foundation will try establish community-wide partnerships to provide resources for students, offer support for education and provide enrichment opportunities, raise funds to support our grant program, provide opportunities for students to develop community awareness and leadership skills, and provide grants to Vallejo public schools in line with our mission statement. We are planning our first fundraiser in May or October next year. This will be determined after we talk to PTAs at the schools because we don't want to interfere with their funding. All money received will go directly to Vallejo's public schools. We have a website, vallejoeducationalfoundation.org. Please go there for more information. At this time, we need to find volunteers and supporters to help us get this foundation off the ground and to spread the word about its mission. And that's why I'm here. Actually, I would like to introduce the foundation. I would very much appreciate it if you could publish something about the foundation through your email lists and or distribution channels to make our community aware of its existence and its goals, and to help attract volunteers and supporters to reach those goals. I have some copies here if your members are interested, also with a copy of our IRS recognition letter and the filing with the state. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm not sure, is that also feasible at this session, or can I just submit some copies to you? This is very new to me. Okay.
Yes, we do have one other speaker in the Zoom, so whenever you're ready, let me know and we can go ahead and allow them to speak.
Manny, can we please allow the Zoom speaker?
Thank you. CCC recruitment, go right ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And is there any option for video?
Not at this time.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Cornwall. I'm the statewide recruitment manager with the California Conservation Corps. And I am joining today really just to share about this program and increase awareness about it. We are a statewide government agency program that provides a paid workforce development training program for California residents ages 18 to 25 and military veterans through age 29. The program, although it is statewide, we do have a center in Solano County that has immediate job openings for young adults that can get them access to really well-paying careers in the conservation field. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about this program and also invite all of you to join us at a tour at our center in Solano. The tour is going to be taking place on December 7th. And I will follow up with more details and information about this, but really what we're hoping to do is raise awareness. Hopefully, you all can share this with your spheres of influence as well so that we can simply increase job opportunities, training opportunities, development opportunities for young adults in the county. I'll just share a little bit more about the program. Again, the California Conservation Corps is a government agency, so we're a taxpayer-funded program that provides paid work and training opportunities for young adults ages 18 to 25 or military veterans through age 29. The program is designed to provide the population with work experience, free training, and a community that's focused on personal and professional development. The work that CCC Corps members do is all conservation focused, whether natural resource conservation, trail building and restoration, watershed restoration, energy conservation, and so on and so forth. Again, we do have a non-residential center in Solano, California, meaning that Corps members who join us locally in Solano County can continue to live, wherever they're living, and they'll just commute into our center like they would for a typical job. There are also residential programs across the state for the CCC for folks who may need stable housing. I would love to share my contact information as a follow-up and just thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Manny, are there any other public comment?
Not at this time.
All right, we will move on to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Councilmember Dew? Oh, I need a second. Oh, thank you. Councilmember Dew? Yes, we're vote call.
Yes.
Vice President Gardner?
Yes.
Board Member Fox?
Aye.
Councilmember Lorea Diaz?
Yes.
This is approved unanimously. Now we're moving on to the approval of the minutes for May 21st, 2021.
I'll make the motion. It was a long time ago, but I was there, so.
I'll second the motion.
Councilmember Dew?
Yes.
Vice President Gardner?
Yes.
Board Member Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Lorea Diaz?
Yes.
This is also approved unanimously. We will move to the discussion item 6A, safety and security. Oh, excuse me, we're going to have City Manager Malone speak.
Good afternoon, committee members. So we have in the audience our police chief, Tao, and he brought someone with him. So they're here to try to answer any questions related to PD's involvement in this issue that you guys are about to discuss. So they're here to answer any questions. So I'll just open it up for you guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Tom, Interim Police Chief. To my right is Lieutenant Jeremy Huff. So we'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have of us today.
Superintendent Spalding?
Thank you. Just a little bit of background. So when we met to put together the agenda, this was an item that was coming up and one that we felt like was going to be an area of mutual interest between both the city council and the school board. As I think everybody here knows, we've been working very closely with VPD, for a number of months. I think there's some challenges that, of course, that they're facing, particularly in staffing, and that was, starting to, be an issue, I think, in some of our emergency response and dispatch. We've seen a lot of improvement, in recent weeks, in response, really full responses and quick responses. But there were some items here, and you'll see them, and I want to kind of throw this open to the elected members, but we had talked about, in developing this agenda item, what kind of resource options there might be, even with short-staffedness, is there a possibility for, the restoration of SROs, at some point in time? I know that was an interest of the board. And then there's an item that says legislative options, and that was looking at, possibly what kind of other things could be happening, especially in terms of city ordinances that we might look at. There was some talk after an incident at Vallejo High School about, would it be beneficial to close down Nebraska Street between Amador and the railroad tracks during the school day. So that was something I think we wanted to the board wanted to throw out. And the other one is we've had some encampments behind our schools and around our schools, and there have been some problems that have come from those. There's been some gunfire that's come from some fires that have occurred, and so there's some new ordinances that are being created in other cities. Stockton comes to mind, LA, Sacramento. I think Lodi did this too, that basically declares schools to be on the list of critical infrastructure, that you can have a camping ban, within 500 feet of that, so that, that there aren't those kind of issues right there with schools. So that's kind of an overview of the agenda item, but it's everyone else's job to talk it through, so I'm going to step back, but hopefully that helps to clarify. Thanks.
Board Member Fox?
Yes, good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you. I know with being short-staffed, with the two incidents we had in the summer at John Finney, and also outside of Vallejo High just over about a month ago. Thank you for your fast response, and thank you for everything you did. We do appreciate you, and glad we're here working as a team today, trying to be proactive to hopefully not have these issues happen. One of the issues that this is actually for the city council or for the city manager, Superintendent Spalding talked on it briefly, is to expand areas of homeless encampments that there's an ordinance how far they can be or how close they can be in proximity to a school site. And we already have put in a lot of fencing around our schools. So the fencing, we've tried with that, but the incident that happened in John Finney in the summer, we're not sure, it never got solved. But the speculation was there was a homeless person with a gun coming after students. And if we can try to just find an ordinance or space to try to make it further or harder just where our students are walking to school, and so our students, when they're traveling to and from class or to school, even with the fences to be dropped off or picked up, that there's safe zones or safe areas. And I'm not saying unhoused are not safe. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying for those that may have a mental illness or something that's going on, just to protect our students even more so. I think also Superintendent Spalding touched on Nebraska Street as far as closing, and I think that might be difficult because of the citizens that live near that, but perhaps having an efficient, quick way that it can be closed if something happened, that immediately something can close, maybe at intersections, or having a chain or something that could be put across quickly to barricade certain street entrances. So there's a way to quickly and efficiently close a street if something was happening, to the essence of time. And that's all I think Public Works to work on that. That's not something for you either. But to find out how to address those two areas, to address the safety. The other issue I wanted to say is building the relationships. I know years ago, I'm going to date myself, but we had the DARE program, and we had officers come in and teach our students and be in our classrooms. With funding, things like that have changed. I know you've done basketball with our students and other things, and but any ways to promote coming to our schools and doing something in the multi-use room for the auditorium, like a presentation, and just so the kids are comfortable around at all ages. I know we've done that with fire trucks too, where students get to see and they talk to the firefighters and they get to see the truck and ask questions. So I think at an early age, if we build those relationships, it's not we and them, it's us. And it's also, there's not a fear of who these people are with these uniforms. It's, oh, they're here to protect us, and this is what their job is. And we understand as community how the puzzle, how we all fit together. So any way to build it, I know you're already stretched, but if there's a way with schools or continuing relationships with basketball, or like I said, coming to the schools and doing presentations, or with working with youth groups, anything like that, relationships are key. And I think that's it for what I had. And again, thank you for your service.
Councilmember Lorea Diaz.
Yes, I'm going to agree with Trustee John Fox. I totally think that our kids need to be safe, and we need to, and again, it's not that we are speaking badly about anyone that is unhoused. It's just that we have a duty to protect our children because they don't have a say in anything, right? So along that line, I also want to add, I know that Caliber is not part of our school district, but I'm going to bring it up because there is a situation going on right there, and we as council members need to address it. It doesn't really, it's not in line with the school district, but it is in line with what we're set to do. So this ordinance should apply to that school and any other school in the city that has Vallejo kids, because these are our kids. These are Vallejo kids. You know, there was a shooting there, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and I think just a couple of days ago it was surrounded by police. I'm not going to go into details of what happened, but I did make a trip out there, and I took plenty of pictures that I will, you know, show and video to where the classrooms, as they go grab one of their books to read, you know, oversees that house. And in the time that I was there, which was about 10 minutes, there were multiple amount of people going in and out from the house to a tent to a trailer, from the house to a tent to a trailer. And then I went to the play yard. Well, there's a chain link fence that divides the property of the house and the school with a tarp. You know, that's unacceptable. So I agree with you, Trustee Fox. I think it needs to be applied to all of them. The basketball program, I think, is great. We do want you guys to work with the kids because, you know, I've had prior police chiefs and prior police officers come to the Centro Latino because I want to build that connection. I don't want them to be afraid of you, but I want them to know, you know, that you're good, you know, that you're going to protect them, because that's what you're hired to do. So the midnight basketball is great, but I'd like to see other programs too, because not all kids play basketball. There's a lot of kids out there. The school district has about 50% Latino kids, and they don't play basketball, most of them, out there in the soccer fields. So we have to have something for everyone. And then the last thing I want to do is talk about the SROs. So I like I said, I want to keep our children safe. That's our top priority. But my kids went to school here. They were born and raised here. And things have happened at the schools that don't really make me happy, that have to do with sometimes the police department. 4 to 5 Mexican or Latino kids on a corner, or 4 to 5 black kids on the corner by the school campus does not constitute a gang. And unfortunately, constantly, a lot of the kids were harassed. And I'm talking about Hogan High School specifically, and Springstown Middle School. Those are the schools that my kids went to. So although I want SROs, I'm worried of building that school-to-prison pipeline back again. I really worry about that because, unfortunately, disappropriately, a lot of black and brown kids get arrested, and then they have a record at a very young age, and then it's hard to clean that record. And being a mother and a grandmother of brown boys and brown girls, that really hits my heart. I think that we can go that route if everyone so desires later on, but I would like to have statistics. I want to know what kids are being pulled aside, and what kids are being arrested, and what kids are getting in trouble. And that's something that shouldn't take a lot of work. That's something that admin at the schools can do, because if we see that it's disappropriately being done, and I'm not accusing either of you of this, I'm just putting facts out there, because I think I might be one of the only ones up here maybe that had their kids go to Vallejo schools. I'm not sure anybody else, but my kids went here, so I know firsthand what they faced. And at times it was ugly, and I don't want it to happen again. So if we do decide to go that route, I would hope that we can have stats and that we can have people assigned to the schools that are good with kids, kind of like a pediatrician. If you're going to be a pediatrician, you have to like kids. So if you're going to be an SRO, you have to get along with the kids. If not, then maybe people need to go to a lab or someplace else where they're not dealing with kids. So that's my take on the SROs. I'm all for it if it's done properly.
Councilmember Dew?
Thank you. I did have it up before you raised your hand, just so you know. Yeah, but I lifted it when he turned his on. So I do agree with some of what's been said. I think that not only our schools, but any of our, for example, there's a First 5 Center opening in December on Couch Street, the 500 block of Couch Street, and certainly want to make sure that those places are safe places for our children to go. I think that we are understaffed. We know that. It's not just Vallejo. Martinez, I just talked to them, and they're 40% understaffed in their police department also. Everybody's struggling. City of Antioch is offering $30,000 hiring bonuses for any new hires in their police department. So, it's a struggle we're all facing. But we do what we can. And I think that, really big picture, we need to look at the fact that no amount of policing at the end of the day is going to overall make our community safer. We have to invest in our kids from the very beginning. And that's why I have on the agenda later on the Vallejo Early Learning Center and the Care Clinic and the Inspire program, because those are 3 pieces of a puzzle that I think are long-term going to be the solutions for our community. Thank you.
Vice President Gardner.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I do agree that we need help as far as the homeless encampments that are close to the schools and violence that is surrounding the schools. And I do like the idea of the ordinance, which is practiced, I believe, down in Southern California. I also want to speak to the SROs. I've worked at high schools that had SROs, and the SROs were a great help to the students, to the faculty, and to the staff. High schools are a microcosm of communities. So if things are going on out in the community, they're going on in the high schools in particular. And some of those situations are unsafe. They're unsafe to other students on campus. They're unsafe to the faculty and to the administration, because the administration are the ones that have to deal with the kids. Many of these kids, I can't tell you the number of students that brought knives to school that had to be dealt with. A star, a throwing star, I can't think of the name of that. Weapons. I mean, they do bring weapons on campus. And sometimes it is very helpful if there is an SRO available to help you deal with the student. I've seen SROs counseling students that were they were on the edge of becoming gang related, and these were Hispanic students. The SROs would basically counsel them and talk to them and try to mentor them. So I think that if it's the right person,
Exactly.
it's a positive influence on campus, and it makes everyone feel much, much safer. And speaking from experience, I've had parents come in and an SRO dealing with parents that are intimidating or threatening staff. So I believe that they're critical to any community, and I agree that there are too many brown and black children in the pipeline. But I think if you get a good SRO that is very kid-friendly and understands what their role is on the campus, they're more a benefit than they are the opposite, a problem. So I don't understand why that wouldn't be of value and police departments wouldn't want police officers on high school campuses, because it really is a preventative measure for the community in the long run. And the DARE programs that we used to have in elementary school, it's important for community policing and for police officers for children to be exposed to police officers as other human beings and recognize their importance in a community, and that they should be a safe person to talk with. So I think that the DARE program was, if nothing more than them being on campus and dealing with small children and having small children acknowledged and see police officers as people and someone that they can trust. That filters up then to middle school and high school, and I think that it would just be a benefit to the community. So because I've worked with SROs and I have felt their presence and understood the impact that they have on the students, I think they're incredibly important. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Lorea Diaz.
Yes, I just want to add that I agree with you, Trustee Gardner. I totally agree with you. It's not that I'm not wanting SROs there. I want the right SROs. And the fact that we start working with the police, coming to the elementary schools is important, because if you start building that relationship, by the time that you're in middle school and that you're in high school, you already know these officers. That was the way it was way back in the day, and the DARE program was great. Those of us that have been here a long time know that. The only thing that I will reiterate again is that we have to have the right people in place, and it wouldn't cost much to keep track of which kids are the ones that are getting in trouble. And if they're brown, they're brown. If there's kids that are bringing knives to school and they are Mexican kids, I don't have a problem with them being disciplined. But I don't want to see, 30 in a month that are black and 32 that are brown, because I think that we have better than that. My kids were never, ever in a gang, ever. And they're as Mexican as they come. So If we can put stats to this so that we know and we monitor, and then maybe why not? The school board could maybe interview a couple of officers. You know, you can put together 4 or 5 that want to be SROs, and you guys, being on the school board, could interview them and make the decision that you feel that would fit in. But the key, like Councilmember Dew said, is to start working with them when they're little. Make these trips to the schools, you know, coordinate with a teacher. I know you guys are you know, overworked and don't have enough, but you know, when you really believe in something, you do it. Even if you're getting off your shift and you can just say, hey, you know, these kids in Vallejo are going to grow up to be the kids that we're going to see. If you're sticking around here for a while and plan on retiring here, you're going to run into these kids that are in first grade now, later on are in high school. Stop by the schools. Make it a point to say hi to them when, and I know a lot of you do. I've been down at Farmers Market and I see folks, and I've seen you, Officer Han, correct? I've seen you down there on your bike, and I see how you interact with everybody, and everybody interacts with you. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Not to mention that you helped my family out quite a bit when they had a problem of burglary in their house, and I thank you for that. So I'm not anti-police. I'm just anti-abuse of police. So if you guys can work with our kids, they're precious to us. These are our kids. I want them to succeed. So SROs that'll do the job right, parents that participate, council members that care, school board members that care, we should be a team. Thank you.
Councilmember Dew?
Thank you. So I just had a question because I know we used to fund SROs, and so probably with COVID, that kind of with distance learning, that may have gone by the wayside. But do we currently fund it and staff it?
The answer is probably no and no. I think the funding goes with the staffing levels. We actually talked about this. Could we actually assign officers to be school resource officers? And to be a school resource officer and be effective, it has to be a full-time assignment. Mm-hmm. And with our current staffing levels, we don't think that we can accommodate that at this time. I think the discussions with the police chief was that it's absolutely something that we would like to get to a point that we could do. And we talked about some alternatives that we could probably do something to have some presence on the council, but I'll let the chief explain what he wants to propose.
Sounds great.
Well, first of all, I appreciate all the comments. I agree with every one of your guys' comment. I was an SRO from 1997 to 2019. I worked with the same school the entire time. I understand what you guys are saying. You need the right person, but that takes time to develop that person into the perfect person at that school. So I don't disagree with anything you guys have mentioned today. We would, of course, and knowing from experience, know that probably from about age 8 to around 10 or 11 is kind of those pivotal years where if we're able to really kind of dip in to those years before they hit the high school age, then we can be more influential. The reality, though, is that as we talk with the city manager on staffing levels, we have to make hard choices. And some of those choices are based on staffing levels, and some of those staffing levels are really dictated by crime, violence, and injuries. So our first priority is making sure that we respond and are able to respond quickly to anybody that is being victimized in a crime of violence, first and foremost. Secondly, if somebody's injured, whether it be on a major injury car accident or some other form of injury, that's our second priority. And then everything else is after that. And so when it comes to the schools, we've been trying to be creative with how we are able to help our schools and our partners associated to the schools, all the teachers and all the staff that they have. So we increased our communication with the superintendent and his staff, and we also formed a better network internally for communications with our staff. So for example, if something happens at a school, we get notified, and it goes all the way up to me, and we make sure at every level that the schools, if at all possible, are receiving the best service that we can provide at that given moment. So that has worked. I can give you an example. I don't know if it was a month or maybe a month and a half ago, we had a homicide the night before, and there was a big fight at the school the very next morning. We were still involved with that homicide scene. Detectives were still interviewing witnesses. We were able to make it work. You know, we shuffled things around, but of course, sending folks to the school is not sending folks somewhere else. So those are hard choices that we make constantly, and we look to see how we can best serve the community under any given circumstance. So I just wanted to just throw out a couple of things that I think I want to just give props to our staff, because we do a lot of engagement. It doesn't usually occur as often as we would like it. So we do the third grade reader program. We have a law and justice program through Jesse Bethel. We have the basketball program that we support. And I'm probably forgetting a couple of other things that Lieutenant Huff will probably remind me of. But I don't disagree with any of your guys' comments. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think, though, we could staff full-time. We talked about some creative maybe solutions for deterrence. We've used some ghost vehicles, for lack of a better term, where we strategically place them at certain times of the school day or school functions. We have to be cautious about that, because then, you know, it looks like it's just an empty vehicle all over the city and it loses its luster. The other thing we talked about is creatively using some of our police assistants. If we can use them at the end of the school day to adopt a school and provide some sort of visible, I don't want to call it deterrence, but just some visibility at the end of the school day. And if something does happen, they're able to get on their police radio and ask for help right away. But having an official-looking vehicle with official-looking uniforms and some flashing lights, it's amber lights, but it's something. And a lot of cities have used that in their model for after school with either crossing guards or police assistants or any other civilian staff that they may have available. That has been very effective. So we're looking for ways to help increase or decrease the amount of incidences at schools. But at this moment, with all of our other staffing challenges, it is not likely that we'll be able to staff an SRO permanently in the near future.
Board Member Fox?
You actually hit on some of the things I was going to ask you about, the creativity. When we are stretched so thin with funds and with time and people resources, to get creative and looking outside the box, you already brought up what I wanted to talk about. So I loved when you said adopt a school. So when we get new hires that need to put in their time or they're in training, perhaps an hour a week, even if they had a school that, or someone that's assigned in the office that doesn't have out on the streets, but even people there that can go maybe even an hour a week. And it can be very strategic. It can be for the younger schools during recess, because if they're at recess or lunch recess and you're there at that time and you're on the playground with them, they're seeing you and they're talking like, oh yeah, I saw you last week. You gave me that sticker I wore on my shirt. Whatever it is, the excitement, they see you again, even if it's 2 weeks, whatever. I think just that, again, the relationship and the presence on the sites is so crucial. And for upper grades, it might be just like during their lunchtime or in passing, maybe work with Superintendent Spalding with what would be the best strategic times when this time is so limited. If there was an hour in a day that people had a school and it was elementary through middle to high school, what would be those times to really be there, to be present for them to see you? Is it before school? Is it at lunch? Is it at recess? Is it after school? And where the kids can come see you, but they have to know, okay, now I have to go. I'm here. This is the only time I have, but I'm here to see you, and I'll come see you again. It might be a while, but I'll be back. So that creativity and just thinking outside the box and the visibility. You said something else. I'm a third grade teacher. And when you said going in and reading to students, I can tell you as a teacher, I love it when someone else is reading, or someone else comes in my room, a retired person or anyone that just comes and reads a book, and I'm just memorized listening, like, wow, it's not me reading the book. But even reading a book, or, I don't know, an art lesson, or like Councilwoman Mina Diaz said, I do PE at the same time every week, and I have those times set. So I have stations. Kids are doing ball while they're doing basketball, they're doing soccer. If there was an officer just standing there watching or cheering them on or just keeping score, even if it was for 15 minutes, they'd be like, oh, wow, you're back. Oh, you care about who's winning or how we're playing. You gave me a pointer. Or, oh, when I kicked that out, you threw it back in for me. The impressions that gives to a young mind, and again, then they're like, oh, wow, officers are part of our community, and they're helpful, and they're here, and they're at our school. They're important to us, and we can't wait to see them again. So again, it's building that trust, that relationship, and hopefully continuing the pattern with stretched resources and time. But I think there's ways to be creative, like you said, and maybe assign someone maybe an hour, even if it's every other week. If there are hours that they're assigned school, I think that would be so powerful here in Vallejo to start a program like that, and it would build and build. Thank you.
Councilmember Larea Diaz, before you begin, I just wanted to send a reminder that this is a 1-hour meeting and we're about 19 minutes away, just to keep you guys on it.
Okay, it's Trustee Fox and myself, but it's like you looked at my notes, because everything he said I agree with, maybe using the cadets, utilizing the cadets and rotating the officers, because the more the kids see you when they're young, the better off this is going to be. Last year I had El Día del Niño in April. Almost all of the city departments were there, and so was the police department. They were present. They had and I think you were present, Chief Ta. So going to different events when you can, and even if you're off duty, come back and visit Vallejo. A lot of folks here, not everybody doesn't like you. People like you. Come back so they see. I'm out there a lot, and people scream at us and sometimes don't agree with us, but I still go wherever I want to go because I want people to see me. So make your presence known. Go to events, and I'll leave it at that so we can move on. Thank you.
So 6B, VCUSD strategic plan, I think Superintendent Spalding.
Thank you. Just a little bit of context, and I don't know if the board members want to talk more to it, but what I want to do is kind of roll out and share the strategic plan that the board's been working very hard on for over a year now. I think this had its genesis probably even before I came. I think there was conversation and an effort to want to get a strategic plan underway for the district, probably in 2020, 2019 even. But everybody was kind of waiting for, the pandemic to lift, and how do you do this, over Zoom? So we're trying to not do it over Zoom, but we ended up really kind of having to do it over Zoom because things kind of kept going. Councilmember Diaz was a member of the group that we had. We had a group called the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, SPAC. And they met 4 times. We had actually 2 individuals who joined us who were our consultants to walk us through this process. And their work is, in fact, one of them is the author of a book called Street Data, which basically talks about that in really understanding the kind of progress you make as a school system and how you improve. The kinds of things that people typically look at, there are things, like these metrics, the test scores and suspensions and expulsions and attendance and, all these other kinds of things. That's called satellite data. And that's all state level. But what she proposes is there's really street data. You need to find out what your kids think. You need to find out what your parents think. You need to find out what your community thinks, your teachers, hear from staff. So this SPAC was made up of 30 people who were city leaders, community leaders, parents, teachers, employees, administrators. I see one of you were considered an elder, but that's not meant as a bad thing. But we had some long-standing, long-time members of this community also be members of that. One was Dr. Young, another one was Dr. Werder Liga, who's worked with us, over the years. So anyways, we went through this whole process and then came up with this document. And I'm not going to go through and read everything, but I do want to kind of just share kind of the big pieces and then, leave it to the board to talk more about it. The other thing I want to tell the council is you're the first ones to get this glossy new version. It just rolled out. So you're the first one to put your fingers on it. So the strategic plan goes from 2022 to 2027. You'll see it's very, very aspirational. And it's kind of open-ended. It reads more like the Constitution than a law book, and that's on purpose to really try to kind of stretch us as a district to make the improvements and to be the very best we can be over time. There's a vision statement that I'll leave to you to look at, a mission statement, and then there's a set of core beliefs and values, and you'll see that there are very strong and assertive statements about what we believe and what we stand for, but as a board, as a district, as a school community. And then there are major pillars, which are kind of the major themes that we want to really pursue, with some tenets underneath to understand what that looks like. So there are 4 of those: equitable opportunities and equitable outcomes, safe and supportive learning environments, vibrant culture of teaching and learning, and community-centered education. And then the last page talks about the portrait of a VCUSD graduate, which is it's going to be really one of our big projects this year, is to really define what the profile of a graduate from one of our high schools looks like, what they have, what skills they have, what attitudes, knowledge, skills, capabilities they have, and then to work towards that, from TK on, to really do work at every grade level to build to what we want to see emerge from our school system. So that's kind of the orientation, and I'll turn off here so that if the board has any more to say, and of course council members, leave it to you for your discussion.
Board Member Fox?
Okay, I'm going to be brief, and then Trustee Gardner, we will, because we have other items we must get to. The strategic plan, like Superintendent Spalding said, we've worked on for over a year now, and it was wonderful having community engagement, hearing the issues and what's needed in our schools, what's working, what's not working. The biggest thing now is that we all are come together and as a district, and this is kind of like our Bible or Quran. This is our document. Says who we are, where we want to go, what we're about. And one of the biggest things for me is so many years there's been such a negativity. We want to showcase our students. We want to show our staff and our students how wonderful and valuable they are as parts of Vallejo, and hopefully coming back to Vallejo in their later life and contributing to Vallejo. So this is just something that we all will be on the same page, we'll all understand. We have high expectations, high standards, and everything, the thread that's sewed through this is equity. And that's something that I was part of a training the last 2 years to help bring to Solano County. And that is so important that we know what equitable gaps there are so our students can graduate or get through problems they have and find the ways to get to how we can get them to be successful. So you can look at this. We're going to have more on this because we're rolling this out and having our whole district be part of this, and this is who we are. So I'll let Trustee Gardner, because I know we have to get to another item.
Vice President Gardner.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this document finally. This was asked for a strategic plan. We didn't have a strategic plan when I started on the board in 2018. So we asked for this in 2019 after our first, learning session or strategic session with all of the board members, the study session. So it's nice to finally see this. The equity work that we did last year was very helpful, I think, for all of us when we put together all of the pillars. And the core beliefs and values is really our equity statement. So it's exciting to see this. It's going to be even more exciting when we see the actual application of this and when we have it tied to the LCAP and we can show the community that Vallejo has a good school district. There's so many negative things that are said out there that we forget that there are many positive things that are happening in each one of our elementary schools and high schools. One of the things that I've been encouraged by, actually, is this year at our board meetings where we have schools come and present to us what they're doing and awards that they've received and what they're participating in. And I think that the community should really kind of tune in and to look and see what's actually happening at the schools rather than finding out about something that happened on Facebook or someplace else. So this is a labor of love, I think, from all of us. I'm very excited about the implementation and getting out to the community and letting the community know exactly what's in the plan and how they can participate in its implementation. Thank you.
Councilmember Lorea Diaz.
Yes, I will be brief too. I think that all of the pillars are equally as important, but Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 have something that I've always said is really important, which is parent engagement that is early, transparent, and collaborative. That's Pillar 1. And Pillar 2, the physical and emotional safety of all students and recognizing the value of each child and family. You know, children have a really hard time learning if their needs are not being met at home. It's really hard to go to school when your PG&E was turned off, or your parent, your dad was deported, or your mom is on drugs at home on the couch. It's very hard. So reaching out to the families is super, super important, because if you want a child to succeed, you have to work with their parents, their guardian, whoever is involved in their life, and bringing them on board and having things done in different languages and at different levels so that nobody feels like they have to shy away from us because they're not welcomed. Because in reality, this is great. I enjoyed being part of that, and I thank you for inviting me, because kids is one, in case you haven't noticed, kids is one of the top things that's important to me, and it should be for everyone, whether you have children or not, because these kids are growing up in our city, and if we all watch out for them, they're likely to be productive citizens later on in life.
All right, moving along, we'll go to 6C, the Farragut property sale. And we do have our Planning and Development Services Director, Christina Ratcliffe, and Assistant City Attorney, Laura Zagaroli. City Manager Malone.
So we invited Laura and Christina here because there seems to have been some questions about the city's participation in assisting at this location. And so Christina is going to give a short update as to what the city has done to assist this group in their efforts to establish a school at this location. And we can answer any questions. This will probably be the last topic for the day also.
Thank you, and hello, members. So just real briefly, Seneca School approached the planning department back in March to see about taking over the vacant Farragut School. It's been empty for some time. Our new code that was adopted in July of last year allows, as a permitted use without a conditional use permit or anything else, a school up to 10,000 square feet, K through 12. We worked with Seneca to fence off part of the property and help them work through getting improvements made to the building so that they could open September 12th for the fall semester, which they did. All the while, the plan was, and we had worked with them on this, is our code does not allow a school over 10,000 square feet in the public sector, or I'm sorry, public and quasi-public zoning district. It's just not permitted. So what we had talked about with them was a zoning code text amendment to allow that with a conditional use permit. That would allow community input. It would go before the Planning Commission for that. The text amendment also had to go to City Council, but we talked to them about streamlining it so we would take it together and write it so the conditional use permit would only be granted if the council ultimately approved the zoning text amendment. So that's where we were in March, and they moved forward and did a lot of work very quickly to make that structure sound and available for September 12th. Our building official worked with them on that. And then, I guess in October, we heard from Seneca that they had concerns about a public meeting or public hearing for this project, and was there any other way around it? And there's not. If you change the zoning code, it has to go to the Planning Commission, and then it has to go to Council for final approval. So that's where we are. I also talked to a representative from the school district earlier, I think within the last 2 weeks, and basically just told the same information. This is the process. This is what we go forward with doing. And it would be the same. I wanted to clarify in the email that I sent to Councilmember Dew and Councilmember Laura Diaz earlier. I said that the public school would not be subject to the city code. It wouldn't be subject to the city building code as a public school. That would go through the division of the state architect. However, it is subject to the zoning code requirements. You know, and I think the difficulty was that there was a school there before, but it didn't have a use permit. It happened, you know, it was established before our code. It was a legal, non-conforming use. So it's fine if it continues as a school. However, it stopped for over a year, and per our code, once a use stops for a year or more, it's no longer legal non-conforming. You have to start from where the code is now. So that is the brief update. If I can answer questions or clarify anything about the process, I'm happy to do so.
Board Member Fox?
Yes, thank you for that update. I'm curious, it's very frustrating since it was a school, it's still a school, even though it was vacant, and with COVID and pandemics and everything else, it gets frustrating when it's an apple, but still an apple, but now it's not an apple. Anyways, it's frustrating. So I would like to know this timeline. So you said it needs to go back to planning, then it needs to get to City Council for approval. You said you would be able to streamline it. Can you give an idea about the timeline to streamline? And will that put it back to the zoning for school use for, as long as it stays occupied, there's no vacancy, that they can continue as a school, therefore, throughout eternity, thereabouts?
I don't know about eternity.
I know, I'm just teasing.
So what we had envisioned back in March, and we kind of hoped that they would apply and they'd be done by now, was that if Seneca applies for a zoning code text amendment and a conditional use permit concurrently with the text amendment, you know, the proposed text amendment saying allowing a school of over 10,000 square feet at this location with a conditional use permit, then it would go to the Planning Commission. It would have a public hearing, 500-foot notice in the paper, and notice at the site. And we would draft the conditional use permit so that it would not be approved unless the council approved the zoning text amendment. Because the Planning Commission, in asking for a zoning text amendment, refers the matter to the City Council with a recommendation. They can act on the conditional use permit, but not on the text amendment. So in that way, they wouldn't have to apply for a text amendment to Planning Commission, then go to Council, then apply for a use permit, and then go to Planning Commission. You would do it all together.
And what's the timeline approximately?
Great question. It depends on when they submit and when they are deemed complete, but we have a 14-day public hearing notice, so probably the fastest would be 3.5 to 4 months, just because of writing the staff report, noticing the hearings, and when the hearings are scheduled. Planning Commission meets twice a month, Council meets twice a month.
Okay, what's the staff report need to be, since it was a school, it's still gonna be a school, I'm curious, what is the staff report and how lengthy? Is that a time consumption thing as well?
Well, it's a time consumption because we have to review it. We have to look at the zoning text amendment, what it says, the conditions of approval, create the conditions of approval, compare it to the general plan, make sure it's in conformance with that, make all the appropriate findings that the Planning Commission and the council have to make. So, I mean, we work on that throughout the process, but it's not just a one-page document. We're changing our zoning code. So that's a major thing.
I guess where I'm having confusion is if it was a school as Farragut for many years functioning and open, then I would think those documents are still there, and it wouldn't be hard, because I know how to copy and paste and update code and so forth. To me, you already have the basic documents, what it was prior. To me, you're updating it to 2022. I'm just curious, to me, it's frustrating.
So the school, as far as we can find, never had a conditional use permit. It never had anything that was permitted by the city. And we have to write everything per our code today. It doesn't have the findings that a zoning code had in 1970 or 1980 or even last year. So it's a new thing, and I understand the frustration that, yes, it was a school, but it was never permitted through the city as a school. So we have to go with our code, evaluate it through our code and our general plan, and make sure that, yes, this is going to work. And because it's a zoning text amendment for the zone, the particular zone, public and semi-public, it applies to all public and semi-public zones throughout the city. So we need to look and see, does that work? Does it make sense? I think, we can, I mean, nothing's been submitted, so it's hard for me to tell, but I think we have always been in favor of moving forward with that and always thinking that it would be a logical amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Could I say something real quick? I think it's something that's really important that Christina said is that this information was actually provided back in March. And here's the process that you need to follow to get to where you want to go. And she just said again, there still has not been anything submitted. So until we actually receive the paperwork that they informed them of that's required, the process does not start. Okay, so we're at this point in time that we want them to be successful. We want to see this happen, but they have to give us something to start the process.
Councilmember Larea Diaz.
I think having the school there makes a lot of sense. I think it's needed. So I would like to see us, we've been working with them, and it's very clear, Christina. But perhaps when you mentioned that planning meets, twice a month, we could do a little bit more, maybe, to accommodate them. But they have to take the first step. They have to contact us. They have to provide that application, and that's just something that's a given. Now, my question also is there going to be an environmental impact report that's going to be needed, or is that comes later after they submit their application, or does it not happen?
We need to see what's being submitted. Based on our conversations with Seneca, I wouldn't imagine that would be required, but I haven't seen what they're submitting.
Right, because that would push this out way more than the 3 to 4 months.
That was not our intent.
That was not
at all.
requested.
No, it was not requested. It was never stated.
Okay.
At the most, an initial study, but I just don't know what they have, so I can't tell.
Okay, so I think the key here then is that Mr. Patterson, who is the person from Seneca, to call you and submit what's needed, and then we can go from there. It's pretty simple once we get that done, correct?
Yes, we already provided the application and the required fees back in March.
Okay, so he has it, he's aware of what needs to be done, this is all been explained?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dew.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that, that I appreciated you sharing that whole breakdown back on October 24th. I did also share that with Mr. Graydon, and I assume he has shared that with Seneca, knowing what needed to happen next. I even reached back out to Mr. Graydon and asked if there was anything further he needed from our side, and he said that Seneca was pursuing a CUP, but I'm hearing from you they have not actually filed the application.
They haven't filed yet. I mean, they may be putting something together, but nothing's been submitted.
Okay.
And we haven't heard from them since October.
Yeah, so we can't want it more than them. We all want it, clearly, but they do need to take the first step. Thank you.
So I think we are going to adjourn this meeting, unless there's anything else. Councilmember Dew?
Is there a reason why we have to, besides just the noticing that we have to? Is there somebody else taking this room or anything along those lines? Any other meetings that everyone else has to go to?
I don't think anyone has the room scheduled. I know we have a 5:30 we need to be at. I do. Another meeting, public meeting, I need to be at 5:30. I mean, we could go a little longer, but that's one of the reasons.
I would love to, since all of my items are the ones that are still on the list.
And anything that we didn't get to today was going to move to the top of the list at our next meeting too. So,
Which
but
would be scheduled when?
It's your call if you guys want to continue.
I'm going to agree
for a little bit.
I'm going to agree with Councilmember Dew. I think that it shouldn't take us too long to get through these items, that especially that Vallejo Early Learning Center. You know, that's really important. So I don't mind staying if the rest of the folks don't mind staying. Maybe another half an hour we should be able to get through.
Thank you so much. And so on the Vallejo Early Learning Center, the last time that we as a council heard about it was when I lobbied to support the project. And at that time, it was a collaboration between Vallejo City Unified School District, who was contributing the site for the project, Solano County Office of Education, First Five, and Child Start, and the county through ARPA funding, as well as the state. So I just wanted to get an update to, because when I last heard about it, First Five was, or Child Start, my apologies, was going to be moving in there in September of this year. And I don't believe that has happened, or, so I'm not sure. I wanted to kind of get since we are contributing financially, I wanted to make sure that I knew where the project was. And if there was anything that we as a council could do to move it forward, would love to support and collaborate.
Thank you, Councilmember Dew. So this is a story that's taken many twists and turns, and I know we're watching the clock, so I'll try to abbreviate. Probably over a year and a half ago, I was approached by Lisette Estrella Henderson as a First Five commissioner. That there were programs in the city that were going to lose their spot because they were going to repurpose some of the county buildings, and would we be interested, with one of our pieces of property, maybe in getting into a joint venture for, kind of a integrated early childhood education center. We were all excited. It was great. So I know that you were very involved with that. I know that Aaron Hennigan was very involved at the county level. And so people were kind of pulling in funds that could help with getting this thing started. And our original target date was this last September. So there are other things that kind of happen with that, and I see. I'm not going to drag Mitch up here, but if I do something wrong or say something wrong, you can flag me. Mitch is one of my very indispensable assistant superintendents and has been very much involved with this. So there was some question as to how we would first approach this. So the original plan is that we would all kind of get together and we would all and then we would lease out portions of the building to the other programs, including some very small programs that were privately owned that we would do, and that we would target the Beverly Hills School building. While we were kind of going through this, there was a lot of back and forth, because when you're trying to put these programs together, everybody's got a different set of rules, and everybody's got a different set of regulations. So, various attorneys were involved. How do you put together a lease? And we were trying to get through a lease that would we were trying to get into a long-term lease, but also trying to access grant funds from the state. So there are certain ways that you want to write that lease so that you could do that as well. So it's been a lot of back and forth, and we missed our September timeline just trying to get a lease started. And at one point, the first 5 folks thought, well, would the district be interested in just maybe selling this to us, as opposed to trying to do this? So we started working on that while we were working on a lease. So when you're trying to build a lease and you're also maybe doing ownership, and then there's a whole process that schools must go through under Ed Code and Government Code in how you surplus property. We can't just like list it, with a realtor. We have to go through this whole process where we make it available to, other governmental agencies, nonprofits, all this other kind of stuff. Long story short, actually that was a long story, but we in recent days are getting really close to kind of where we need to be. So when First Five kind of proposed, like maybe we'd just be interested in buying it, we kicked off the process with the board on surplusing the property. And of course we have a 7-Eleven committee that had recommended earlier that we put it up for sale if we wanted to. So we got that process started, then we went through the process of getting an appraisal. So the appraisal just came in a couple of days ago, and that appraisal is for $3 million. The other thing that was going on while this was all happening is that we had our architectural firm working on what are the kinds of things you would need to do to the site, because you can't just easily convert an elementary school to an early childhood program. There are rules. There's the size of the toilets, the size of the sinks, all the other stuff. And then you can't have programs can't share bathrooms. Who knew? So there's all this stuff. So that came up with probably about over time, $12 to $16 million worth of renovations that would have to be done to the school. Another reason why First Five said, maybe we just want to buy this, as opposed to, being a tenant and then paying for all these upgrades. So today we have a $3 million appraisal. We are bringing the appraisal to the board next Wednesday, and it's not an action item, it's just an information item. We're looking to kick off the process for surplus for sale, which allows them and others to come to the table if they want to, but my guess is that they'd probably be the ones most and maybe only interested in the facility. And then however long that takes, and possible sale and, escrow and all those other kinds of things, we see now the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not when we wanted to get in, but I think it's going to make for a more permanent arrangement and one that can be built on and made into something really special. And we're not necessarily going to operate programs over there unless we wanted to lease something back, but it does put a kind of a central location for lots of families to be able to access lots of programs in one place, and a school just a few blocks away that provides adult school opportunities. So I think in the end, it's a really great project, and it's not over yet. We're working on it, but I want you to know that it's still making progress. It's just been slow.
Yeah, thank you for that update. It's extremely exciting for this project. I mean, knowing that 1 in 4 children have access to licensed childcare in our community, and less than half of them actually go to preschool. I don't know how we expect them to be successful in kindergarten when you guys get them if they aren't getting the support and education and enriching environment that they need in the first 18 months, which is when they learn the most. And so that kind of leads me to my next item, unless anybody had any comments on that. So the Care Clinic. So the Care Clinic is a program done by Child Haven. I was a board member with Child Haven, and so I learned that because Vallejo City Unified has its own SELPA rather than the county SELPA, the school is not able to participate in the Care Clinic. So the Care Clinic is a program, a 10-week program that is very intensive for children ages 4 to 6 that are repeatedly expelled and suspended from TK and kindergarten. And so just wrapping your head around that, and that they have cohorts, I think 2 or 3 times a year, and they're full every time. And so, just want to, any Vallejo children that have are Medi-Cal recipients, they're able to participate in that program. But I don't know that the schools in Vallejo know about it as much, because I know the Vallejo children are not in are not in this clinic. And I think that it's important that that the schools are aware that it exists, because it is incredibly successful. The children and their caregivers go through, like I said, this 10-week intensive program with clinical psychologists and parent educators and children educators. And so they return to the school from which they came, and the success rate is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just really incredible. And so I just wanted to make sure that our children get as much access to that as the rest of the county. And I'm happy to connect administratively if you need that connection.
But then I wanted to say,
Yeah.
I wanted to just comment real quick. During the pandemic and the last few years, and the trauma that families have had, it's needed. And I've seen students in K or first grade with so much anger or just so that need help desperately, and they're crying out for help. It's nothing to do with, they just need services to help figure out. But it's so frustrating when you have a little 5-year-old that's just lost or has so much anger, and you're wondering, how can I help this child? So that is something that just sounds so crucial. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, if you can get them the help, like with the Early Learning Center, right? That's another touch point where we can help these children that maybe are having challenges that we're not seeing. And if we don't see it until kindergarten, it's almost too late. I mean, you talked about the pipeline to prison. The metric used to be being able to read in 3rd grade. Now it's excessive or chronic absenteeism and tardiness in kindergarten. And that's not okay for our society, for our community. We have to do something about it. So that's why, the Vallejo Early Learning Center, my vision, that's the first one. And we need to have them all over the city, every district. And then, having these kinds of services like the care clinic to support along the way. And then the Inspire program. So that's a program that I learned about from the Workforce Investment Board. And so that is a program that starts with kind of like a career fair introduction to different types of careers in 8th grade. And then in 10th grade, the students get to go to different businesses. For example, I got Alstom into that program. I got Mare Island Dry Docks into that program. And it was like super exciting until I found out that the Vallejo children aren't participating in this program. Vallejo City Unified doesn't participate in the Inspire program. So I was seeing all these posts on LinkedIn and on Facebook of all these students at Alstom and at the Dry Docks. And I'm like, oh, that's great, our Vallejo kids. And they're like, no, I'm sorry, none of them are from Vallejo. And so it's like, trying to make sure that we get these opportunities for our kids to get the support and education they need from birth and the opportunities all the way through. And looking at that career pipeline, for example, for public safety and for city government. I mean, coming from a self-employed background, coming into city government, I was like, oh my goodness, who knew that it pays so well and has such great benefits? And oh my goodness, if we could have our kids in these jobs, what a difference it would make for our community. So that was why, thank you all for giving us a little extra time. I'm very passionate, as you can see, about lifting up our kids and making sure that they have the tools and the resources and support that they deserve and the opportunities that will enrich our entire community when they get them. So thank you for allowing me.
Youth Initiative, 6G.
Yeah, so that was more just brainstorming on looking at what other kinds of youth initiatives, for example, the Youth Council, trying to get the kids more involved and engaged. For example, we used to partner together, sending youth delegates. Literally, the very last delegation was to Washington, D.C. in March, and the very next week we all had lockdown. So the next conference is actually next week, and unfortunately we don't have any youth. My oldest daughter is going to be our one youth delegate that I'm sponsoring myself. So. But it would be great to have. The next one is the Congressional Conference in March in Washington, D.C. again. It would be lovely to have another delegation. I know it's a bit expensive because you have to have 2 chaperones and for 6 children, and then each child or youth, young adult, they don't like to be called children, I learned at that age. They each have to have their own hotel room, but I think it's extremely valuable. I still hear from those kids today. In fact, one of them is the daughter of Glenn Amboy. And so I think it's just really impactful for our community for them to connect, because they connect with each other, and they have all of these youth session programming for just the kids from all over the country, and so they get to meet the kids from Camden, New Jersey that get a vote at the age of 16 in their municipal elections, and hear about all these amazing projects that the kids initiated, and hear the challenges that they're dealing with in their own communities and how they're tackling them. And it's just, I mean, it really is just life-changing.
I wanted to comment on, is that
We actually had Councilmember Larea Diaz first.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
okay?
Okay, I'll be brief. I agree with Councilmember Dew. I think that the youth council is important. We have fabulous Victoria Grace now as our youth coordinator, so I think we've got the pieces in place. But I don't know what the process would be to add an item to the agenda for the next meeting, but I would like to speak about the youth center, what we lost at Mare Island, and how there were plans to have it at Franklin and it didn't go through. And I would like to talk about this at the next meeting, so I'm not sure if that's something that needs to be agreed
Councilmember
upon
Larea
by
Diaz,
folks.
that's item number 6, so we can add it there. I mean, sorry, 8. We can add it there.
Okay. Would it be best to add it there, or, I mean, we're running out of time, or just bring it back at the next meeting so we can have a full
Well,
discussion?
yes, I've written it down, and
Okay.
we'll bring it back.
Okay.
Board Member Fox?
Yes, I just wanted Councilwoman Pippin Dew has brought students to report to us at the school district, and to hear the students' excitement, or students that have never left Vallejo, and to go have that experience in Washington, D.C., the excitement, and just learning and meeting new friends and learning about our capital and all these programs and making networking connections, the memories of a lifetime. But what I wanted to say, and what we've talked about before for this program, is the connections all of us have in Vallejo with organizations that we can sponsor students. Each of us and the organizations, we can get a list and see who can sponsor to help send as many students as possible to give this opportunity to as many as we can to have this life-changing experience. Thank you.
City Manager Malone?
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce Victoria Grace. She's here. She's a youth coordinator. She's actually going back to the conference. One of the reasons she's going is to get a lay of the land, to plan for the future conferences, so that we can get participation from our youth in the community. And she's been working really hard since she came on board. So I'm just going to give her a couple minutes to introduce herself and maybe provide a brief update on what she's doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, of course, I've met with most of council. I don't think I've gotten a chance to meet with Superintendent Spalding or any of the board members yet, but that is on my agenda. I have been in contact with Dr. Santos, and so I did talk to him about our plans for the National League of Cities conference. I've also connected with one of the prior chaperones, that's a Vallejo High School staff member, and so she's super excited too. She's got the process down. She knows how they want to select kids. And so my next step is going to the conference and kind of scoping it out. What are our kids wanting to get out of it? You know, what does it look like to chaperone them? Where are the best places for us to go? And really, how can we make it the most impactful for them? Another thing that I've been working with VCUSD or with Mike Santos about is following up on some of the participatory budgeting projects that are in partnership with VCUSD. And so right now I'm going to be meeting with our PB delegate or our PB analyst, and so we'll kind of just get the whole rundown on where we're at and what we need in order to push those funds through and finish up some of the projects that people have voted for in the PB process. Another thing we talked about was just how to make better connections. I know there is a work-based learning center, and so we talked about creating better pathways to connect the community and professionals that could be employed with the city as well as around the community with some of the programs that are coming up to really push the economic development goals that we have for our city. And then as well as the strategic planning. And so I'm really happy to hear that VCUSD has their strategic plan down. I would love to take a look at that because I think they feed very closely in with what the city of Vallejo would want as strategic planning. We're in the process of creating an RFP for the needs assessment, and we're working towards some strategic goals and objectives so that as we're going for funding, we can align them with our goals. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is I'm also trying to help create better communications plans. And so one of the big things that I see on our end is we want to make sure that the great things that are happening are getting out there, that the resources that are happening in our city are getting out there. And the same goes for VCUSD, right? We're highlighting the positives that are happening in the schools. And so I'll be meeting with Selena soon. I know we've talked back and forth, but we'll be meeting soon just to look at what does good communication look like, how can we kind of partner on our Vallejo Weekly or our social media to push similar messages. And yeah, I look forward to continuing being a liaison and a support. You know, VCUSD was my home. I came through VCUSD. I attended all VCUSD schools, went to college, and came back. And so this is what I love to do, and I'm excited to be here.
Vice President Gardner.
Is that not, okay. Victoria, I just wanted to commend you on your position. I'm so happy that you're there. The district misses you, but you know about VCUSD, and I think that this is a perfect place to partner with the city, because I don't think that the district wouldn't be anything without the city, and the city wouldn't be anything without the district, and we need to start communicating more effectively, and I see you as one of the linchpins that can make that happen. So I'm very excited about your position. I'm very excited about the relationship that the district and the city can have, and a lot of it's going to be through you. So thank you.
All right, there's nothing for item 7 on the
I wanted to ask her something real quick.
Sorry.
That's okay. For the National League of Cities, when you are working on it, please reach out to me, because I would like to, with council, the city council, work on a list of sponsors for how many students and how many we can get sponsored through different clubs in the city. I know Trustee Gardner and I belong to many clubs. I know Mina, all of us do. So if we can make a list, I'll make a list and try to see which ones will sponsor. If you can tell how much it costs to sponsor one student, I will approach the different clubs or have help approaching them so that we can see how many can be sponsored, so we can make the program as full as possible with as many applicants. So if you can reach out to me on that, I would love to work on that.
Of course, will do. I believe after attending the conference, my next step will kind of be presenting on the takeaways and whatnot. And Dr. Santos had suggested that I create kind of a one-pager to present to VCUSD board about, why do we want to take students? What is the history behind taking it? What have they gotten in the past? And what do we hope for them to take away? So I will definitely keep you guys in the loop.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dew?
Yeah, and I can just share that the cost of the conference for the youth delegates is less than $200. It's actually the airfare and the hotel cost and the food that is the biggest expense. And so, Narcissa, how much is it for mine?
I can't remember it offhand, but boarding was probably close to 1,000. And then the food per diems were pretty standard, and we could look those up. That wasn't that costly. Vice President Gardner?
Yeah, that might be something also. We just had a presentation with the Vallejo Education Foundation. That might be something that we can partner with them.
All right, if there's nothing else, there is no action items on the action calendar. We're going to move on to number 8, future agenda items for discussion. And we have added the Youth Center. Board Member Fox?
I would like to also add pathways. So Victoria Grace, I remember in past years, I remember our past mayor, Bob Sampayan, said there was programs that students can go and get a 2-year something and work in the water department or something. I would love to hear more about what are these opportunities for secondary education for a career to work within the city? What kind of training are through Solano Community College or whatever it is, so that we can be clear and make sure our counselors have that information at high school to give to our students. So whatever type of pathways or careers within the city, what trainings are available, what jobs are they? I know they were very well paid. I remember that. I remember my friend Karen Sims was looking into this with Bob Sampayan, and it was incredible. But I just would like to see that go somewhere and have it another opportunity, because our students graduate and some of them, college is not for them. They want some, maybe they need a trade or they need a program that gives them on-hand skills training so they can excel and have something, their pathway in life. So if you can maybe for our next agenda look into that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Dew?
Yeah, I wanted to add, well, on the internship opportunities, I think those went the wayside with COVID and the reduction in funding, but I would love to see youth internship opportunities come back to the council, come back to our city in all departments, and the sanitation and flood department also. So I'd like to add appointment of chair for the next agenda, and also the next meeting date when, I would love to have one in December.
If that's all for, in December. I think the rules said we would do it bi-monthly. Ms. Thomas and I were looking in January, but due to calendars, vacations, holidays, the first date, unless you all oppose, would be February 2nd at 4 p.m. if that worked for you all.
That would make more sense too, because the mayor will have to appoint somebody for my seat, so I won't be here.
I'm guessing that will work. Will that work for you, Councilmember Lorea Diaz?
Sorry, I was putting it in my calendar. It does work for me. You said at the same time?
4 p.m.
4 p.m., yes.
Okay. This meeting will be at the Vallejo City Unified School District. We will be alternating locations each meeting. And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn now at 5:32.